I'm Chip Townsend, and this is the Team Chip Podcast. All right, guys, welcome back to the Team Chip Podcast. I'm back here with beautiful Miss Glyn Ann. How are you today?
I'm great.
Great. We're going to have an amazing podcast today. We got some retain. You know, in the martial arts business, 3 big R's in my head. Recruit them, retain them, which is huge. We need to keep them in the building. And, you know, revenue. How do we handle that revenue, right?
Right,
so
absolutely.
We're going to talk about some retention, and it's related to parents and instructors staying aligned so that kids don't find loopholes to get out, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's
How do we keep the kids in there? And a lot of this, like, it's around communicating well, you know, so that we can keep everyone on the same page moving forward, right?
Yep, absolutely.
Awesome. So,
you know, kids follow a pattern. And,
they do.
And whenever they're always watching to see what gets allowed, they're looking to see if something gets hard, are they going to be allowed to just quit?
Mm-hmm. Right? Are they going to be allowed to quit?
Yep.
Or, you know, maybe if they have an older sibling that gives up and is allowed to quit, then the younger sibling sees that pattern, right?
Right.
And goes, I can just say it's tough and someone's going to let me out the door. You know, that's tough. You know, other things too, like, you know, if disrespect is allowed in one venue but not in another venue. You know, I ran into this the other day. We'll talk about it more as we move forward. But, you know, we have this kid on the mat, gets his uniform on, gets in class, and is a killer. But then parent comes in and lets us know, which we had no idea because they're thinking about taking him out. We're like, why are you taking him out? Well, because he's acting crazy everywhere else, disrespecting his teacher, yelled at a principal, you know, stuff like this. I'm like, whoa.
This is not the same kid we're seeing.
Not the same kid we're seeing. So, you know, are there inconsistencies in what's allowed, and are we connecting with the parents in a way that we can find those things out so that we can help maybe nudge things in the right direction, if that makes sense, right?
Yeah, and the point of the whole conversation is really just to be sure that, you know, there are going to be things that parents and us, you know, potentially don't agree on,
right.
And that's fine. Mm-hmm. But the things that we are, you know, you look at their goals for whenever their child starts, and that those do align, but being sure that we're reinforcing the same things.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah,
absolutely.
It's alignment.
Absolutely. It's alignment, and it's about, you know, again, we've already said it, but we can help as martial arts school owners and operators if we have really good communication. So this is going to be kind of about, you know, getting that alignment in place, maybe some tips on how to communicate better, systems for communicating, stuff like that. So, you know, first thing is what you allow on the mat kind of becomes the standard. And what I mean by that is like, let's say I've got a line of kids and they're not keeping their hands up, but my expectation and my requirement says hands up, right? But they're going by kind of bebopping the bag or whatever the drill is. And I'm just going, woo, good job, little Johnny. Good job, little Susie. I am endorsing the wrong behavior. And so we have to be careful what we allow, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like whenever you, we see this, you know, whenever there is a specific rule in place, you know, for us, one of those rules is technology, but then you see the parents that literally walked past the sign, and you can be gracious and assume that they just didn't see it and all of that. But then it's been mentioned, it's on the, you know, the announcements, and you see all of the, you know, it's literally everywhere. But the rules are for thee, not for me, you know, kind of mentality. And the perception is, well, you know, whatever that perception is going to be.
Right.
It's not, I don't think that if they have like this, I'm going to be raising this kid that's looking for loopholes, but they are.
Oh, kids are so smart, man. And honestly, you know, we are all to some extent manipulative. And I hate to, none of that sounds negative, but kids, man, they're always looking for what's the way in and what's the way out. And so to kind of speak to that a little bit, like, it drives me a little bit crazy because we'll have kids that have been with us for like a year or two, and I'll walk around the corner sometimes and their little bitty sibling will be buried under mom's arm with a phone. And I'm like,
you're allowing this.
But the big sibling that's on the mat is also looking over going, oh, oh, it's okay, to cut the
Right.
corner or to not follow the rules. You know what I
And
mean?
then
So
the other kids that are at the side are seeing this happen, and they're either going,
Absolutely.
well, that's not fair.
Absolutely. Well, and what's the lesson to the kid that we're kind of focused on the one on the mat right now. They're going, oh, well, mom's going to cut the corner and, kind of cheat the rule here. So that means if I throw a big enough fit because of something I don't like at school, mom's going to come in and go, hey, my kid's special, right?
Right.
We just need to be consistent. But what are we allowing? What are we allowing on the mat? What are we allowing in the lobby? What are we allowing? And are we willing to step up? And another quick story around that, not to get beat up the digital thing, but I had a parent, his oldest daughter has 2 daughters in class. Oldest daughter has recently tested for a black belt, one of our leadership team, young trainees, young teen. And when they first came to us, they had transferred in as martial artists already. So they were like orange or green belts. They were, just getting in. And one day I walked by and the older sister was sitting on a phone in the lobby, and I said, hey, baby, we have a rule. There's no digital zone. We've got games and books, and you can connect with some of the other kids and chit chat a little bit. And she was kind of thrown off by it, and I could tell it. Anyway, the dad told me like a year later, he said, hey, Chip, I don't know if you remember this, but this happened with my daughter. And I said, I absolutely remember it, because I remember walking up to it and I knew it made her uncomfortable. And he said, my first thought was, that's her phone and she can do what she wants. And he said, then I got to thinking about it. This is your house and your rules. And he said, we were more sold and more willing to stay and loved what you do even more because you stood your ground and you stood your boundaries. And he said, and he's in the military, and he said, he said, I had to kind of think through that. He said, because I was thinking, well, that's her phone. She can do what she wants. And he said, then I realized, but this is your house and these are your rules. And he said, now that I understand your rules, I like them too. He said, but at first it was like, hey, that's my kid and their phone. So, and I thought that was really powerful. So what are we allowing?
And I think, if you're kind of going, you're having to process, you're listening to this and you're having to kind of process. I think that if you're a parent, you understand it innately, because you understand that whenever a child comes and asks you for something and you say, go ask your mom. Well, you know that they just came to or go ask your dad. They just came to the weak link because they think that you're going to say yes. And whenever they don't go ask their the other parent, then that they were trying to get away with something that they know is breaking the rules, or stretching those boundaries a little bit. So I think we all know, really,
Absolutely.
we have a pretty good idea what the whole idea of the kids finding loopholes. And whenever you think my kid would never do that, never say never.
Never say never. And quit covering up for your kid, because they're all little toots at times, and we know that, right?
Look at me. Yeah.
So anyway, what you allow becomes the standard.
Yep.
If quitting is allowed once, it can become a family pattern. It can become a pattern, because the younger siblings are often looking up. I just had this situation recently. Older brother, it just doesn't want to come anymore. When for the last 3 years of older brother training, had a little bit of a physical struggle in the beginning with a body part and some balance issues and some things. And for 3 years, this is the best thing in the world that's ever happened to our kid. Their balance is improved. They're just becoming more athletic and all these things. It doesn't want to come anymore. I'm not going to make him. Whoa. But they're younger siblings. And already the next youngest down has quit now too.
Right.
And I'm going, okay, well, the next ones are coming soon. But it's just, again, hate to beat it up, but what are we allowing? And, as a parent, sometimes I think you may think you're kind of keeping the peace, and I just don't want to have to deal with that, or that's just so hard. Well, my question is, why'd you have kids to begin with? Suck it up and be a parent. It's tough. I get it. But, it's not keeping peace to lower standards. It's not keeping peace to allow your kids to build bad habits, So
yeah, as parents, a thing that we have to, thinking on this biblically, which I do try to think of everything biblically, is, we don't offer sacrifices anymore, right? There's not an actual, we're not sacrificing a lamb or, whatever.
Absolutely.
But sacrificing my comfort, which my comfort is having maybe peace with not having to battle over something. Being willing to sacrifice that versus the piece of that versus the difficulty of saying, this is the boundary, you will not cross it. And you may not even really like me for a little while, and that's okay, because your growth as a human is way more important to me than keeping the peace. So that peace thing is just, I just don't think there's nothing that I can see that we're supposed to just like go along and get along,
right,
and concede to things that we've already said no to.
Absolutely, well said. And I kind of fall back again to, well, biblically, spare the rod, spoil the child. And if you're a non-biblical person, go get your Bible out and start reading, because you're probably going, oh, how horrible, how hard on kids. That's not exactly what that means. But, if we lower our standards, the way I look at it is you're keeping your peace. Oh, I just don't want to have to deal with it. Don't want to have to deal with it. Well, first, why are you a parent? Suck it up, be a parent. Parenting is not easy. It's a tough job, right? But the next thing is you're allowing your kid to go from an A+ to a C student,
right?
In my mind, and what I mean by that is we do it now, then we're going to do it again somewhere else. Then we're going to do it again somewhere else. Then the next time a school teacher is hard on my kid, get off my kid. They're special. They have all of these little issues and they're just different. Wrong. They just need consistency. They need expectations, and you need to not sacrifice your peace as a parent if you are a parent, and you need to step in, right?
Yeah.
And I get, like I've had parents tell me, I work all day and it's just so hard, and I have you chose your life. Yep. You chose your situation, right? And you can claim you didn't, but you made the choices all of your life that led to where you are right now. Deal with it is the way I look at it, right? I know that seems harsh, but
well, and I wish I could remember what sport this was in. It's kind of irrelevant, but there was an Olympic athlete that said, all my life, a concept that I learned from my parents was that they would never let me quit something on a low. It always had to come after a high.
Love it.
And the concept there is, think within martial arts, I'm not going to let you quit whenever classes have gotten hard, or memorizing the creed is hard, or the flexibility is hard, or whatever that little piece is. We're going to work through that. We're going to do the testing or the tournament or the whatever, and come off of a high. And if you still want to quit after that, if after you've worked through it, you've achieved whatever, if you still want to quit, then okay, we'll know that it's a real
I'm inclined
thing.
to listen and pay attention now.
But wanting to quit whenever it's hard, and the hard is different for everybody. That's why I mentioned the flexibility, the creed, everybody has something that comes easier to them, and then things that are way hard. And if I let my child quit whenever it's hard, then I'm building that quit muscle versus the grit muscle, versus working through. And the thing is, this person that I heard this from was an Olympian. Right. And so how many times did she have the opportunity to quit whenever it was hard? A lot of them. But Absolutely. Then once she had that success, it was like, okay, this is it's not that success is the end all be all, but the success was like, okay, this is worth it. This is worth pushing through. That is
just absolute gold. Many times, if you're a martial arts school owner, instructor, I've done this so many times I can't count. I'm sure you have too, at times that I didn't know about them as well. But, a parent comes in, oh, man, little Johnny's just really struggling with whatever, and they're just really not wanting to come, and I'm having to fight them to get them here sometime, whatever. And so I can't count how many times pulled a little guy over, a little girl, whatever, said, hey, let's talk about this. Why do you want to quit? And it's always the same. It's hard. I'm tired. Whatever. Same reasons and excuses. Hey, I tell you what, I want to make a deal with you. And I'll take a piece of paper and I'll write out a deal. And the deal will be something like, hey, you're belt testing and you're killing it in class. You know your stuff well. You're getting close. Belt testing's in 2 weeks.
Yep.
You sign that you'll finish through this next belt testing, and the day of testing, when you're done and ready to quit, come and tell me. And I don't think I've had a single kid ever after that, as long as the parent, now we're back to communication between you and the parent, as long as the parent holds them to that deal and makes them fulfill their part and you've fulfilled yours. I don't remember ever having a kid come to me and quit. I really don't. And it's kind of what you're talking about. They hit a high point, and it's easy to quit on the hards.
Well, and they learn that they can work through it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, it's important as martial arts school owners and instructors, we're talking about connecting with the families, learning how to communicate with them, but kind of understanding the family dynamic and how things work and making sure that we're, again, just communicating really well. But what you allow is kind of that concept we're on, is what you're allowing is setting the stage for their future, right? If I'm allowing the hands down, I'm endorsing that, and I'm not willing to hold them to the fire. And I tell you real quick, it popped in my head a while ago. Sometimes as an instructor, I'm on the mat, and I know I've got a parent and their kid in my group working on something, and that parent's been maybe a little difficult before about something, whatever that is, and this little guy's not quite doing their job, but you're inclined to go, okay, good job, and let them go because you don't want to have to deal with that parent. It's kind of like sacrificing your peace because you don't want to have to deal with your kid. I'll deal with the parent. It's okay. I'm going to make the kid do their job and keep the expectation consistent and not allow them to slide, because I understand the value of that. Not for me, for this little guy and the lesson that they're learning as they move forward, right?
Absolutely.
It's so important that we stick to that. So here's another kind of something to think about. Sometimes and I alluded to this thing in the intro, but you'll have a situation where kids are acting differently at different places.
Right.
And to me, the word integrity. Part of our core values, right? Like their integrity is off, but they may come in and absolutely love martial arts, right? And they're killing it on the mat, but they're not liking English at school, or they don't like their math teacher, and they're acting a fool. And if we don't know, sometimes it's too late is my point. Like I've recently had a situation, parent comes in, well, we're going to, pull them out. Well, why? Because they're acting bad at school. So we're going to punish them by taking martial arts away. Right. And it's like, no, don't do that. Let me have an opportunity to at least talk to them and try to encourage them along and help them in the outside environments where they're maybe not excelling like they are here. Right.
Yeah. That communication with the parents, and really you need the key to this is having some sort of system in place, whether it's intentional. I think a system has to be intentional. So the intentionality of having some sort of communication with the parents to say, how are things going?
Right.
How, okay. And man, they're working so hard on the mat. Are you guys seeing anything, at school,
right.
Are there grades? Asking those questions. And that's the key, is asking questions. You're not just downloading information, but you're, say, how are things going? Are you seeing, the other part of that is you have to kind of know a little bit about them. Most people have some sort of survey or some sort of questionnaire that whenever they bring in a new student, that what it is that they're looking for. And that is, kind of giving you their pain points, their things that they're having trouble with, and that they're whether it's respect or, discipline or their behavior at school, you kind of have an idea about that. How's that going? And it's not going to necessarily be after class number 2, but sometimes it is, but usually it's a little ways in, but you're intentional about asking those questions, right? Because that opens the door for, oh man, we're having this trouble at home. And even saying, we want to be something that you're seeing, not just that they're growing on the mat, but that they're growing in their interactions with their friends and and you say those things. So then you open that door for them to come and let you know, because I say all of this, I got a text message several months ago, but it was like, I was, this person that messaged me said, hey, I was at an event with, and this child was there. They were a pill. And it was like, wait, what? They're amazing. That is not what we see. Right. We don't see any of that. And so had we been better, because I think in that one, I just the parents walk in. I assume that assume, that's the key. I assume that everything, that they align with the expectations at home and on the mat, because on the mat, this little person is a killer,
Right.
just like works so hard. And, you know, from the minute they walk in the door, they're on point. Well, what does that tell you? That tells you they know what on point looks like.
Absolutely.
And so don't be fooled that, oh, well, you know, they're just young. No, they are playing you. And they know when to behave and when to be, you know, people don't like the word obedient, but when to follow the rules. And they know when they don't have to.
Right.
And it's one thing, and it's cute whenever they're 7. It's not cute when they're 17.
17. Oh, I knew that. Absolutely. If you don't have control of it by the time they're, 6, 7, 8, 9 years old,
it gets real hard.
you're going to get trucked soon.
And then your piece is like,
and that's a whole different level of peace lost in my mind.
Yeah,
So
it is. It is.
It's just important. So there's a couple of sides to this coin. If you're a parent listening, and there's a disparity in their behavior on the martial arts mat and in other environments, don't think that the instructors in the martial arts school are going to be blown away or just, crushed to find that out, or
judgmental.
Or judgmental.
Yeah.
Please share that with them so that instructors, if they're a true martial arts instructor, they truly care about the development and the lead, the life of your child. If you as a student, period, any age level, right? And so don't be ashamed to share that. And then instructors, I think the other side of that, if you're a martial arts school owner instructor listening to this, how can you, she already alluded to this and talked to you about a little bit, how can you create conversations, opportunities for parents to put their guard down a little bit, maybe if that's the right words, and share things with you through surveys. We do academic patches. And part of I had a dad mad at me a while back. Phenomenal kid on the mat, great little martial artist. And he was upset because her patch level was impacted because of her citizenship grades. And he's like, why does that matter? And I'm like, well, it absolutely matters because if they're talkative in class and not paying attention or disrespectful to the teacher, if this citizenship is not right, typically it's reflected in the grades too.
Right.
And they are directly correlated. My point with that is, as a martial arts instructor, checking report cards, doing little things that are a little above and beyond, and rewarding the kids for good behavior gives you a chance too to kind of see, is there a hole somewhere else that I'm not seeing?
Right.
We have, whenever students test at certain levels, at all levels, their parents have to sign off that their behavior's right, that they're doing a good job. And of course, I'm sure we get a lot of those signed off when the behavior's not great.
Yeah.
But at least we're trying to hold people accountable. At black belt levels, we ask for them to bring reference letters.
Right.
Non-family members, in the martial arts school members, go out somewhere else. Get your youth minister, get a school teacher, a school counselor, someone to write you a letter. So anyway, as a martial arts school owner and operator, there are a lot of things you can do to help you to get a little bit of insight into what the behavior is outside. So if the parent is allowing, they're great here, but not here, and we're just not telling you, you can begin to see that a little bit. And not because you're being nosy or controlling, but because we want to help them to have better integrity. And we want to help them to have a better life, right?
Absolutely. Sometimes, not sometimes, a lot of times it's easier to just do the ignorance is bliss and just let people like, oh yeah, they're awesome everywhere. But you're impacting more whenever you care about not just on the mat performance, but it's the off the mat. It's the, like I think of like the student that it was like their grades were great, but their citizenship was not. Do we want to build, are we wanting to reward brilliant deviance? Like, no, that's not what we want. We want to, those have to go together. So. Yeah,
absolutely. Well, it's funny because I was at a business meeting with a group of businessmen last night. One of the businessmen was one of our early black belts who began he's been a huge success in sales. He began his sales career at our front counter.
That's fun.
Teaching some, and interesting, one of the other guys in the room was one of his coaches when he was a kid.
That's fun. Okay.
And so we were kind of laughing because they were talking about like WWE stuff that I'm not familiar with, but he and our student and this other coach were chit-chatting, and he said something about our student having to get some extra burpees and running because he was a fan of somebody in the WWE, and it was all in jest. It was just playful, and they were laughing. And I said, just so you know, whenever he was my student, which he actually still is, we just trained this morning. But I said, whenever he was in my classes at that age, I said, I was telling him, whatever you do at school, you better do it better than everybody else, because that's the heart of a black belt and what black belts do. Now, are we always going to accomplish that? No, but, and I don't mean for that to sound arrogant, but my drive as a martial arts school owner is to impact every area. You want to play baseball? Be the best shortstop, be the best catcher, be the best pitcher. You want to play football? Be the best at it. You want to go to medical school? Be the best at it. Just put your heart into it and have that black belt heart, right?
Yeah.
And I think most martial arts instructors feel that way. It's not just about the martial arts. It's about how the martial arts impacts every other aspect of their life,
That's
right?
That's right.
All right, guys. So communication, we've beat this to death. It builds trust with parents. So, strong schools, strong martial arts operators don't wait until there's a major problem. And this is back to, we have a first impression specialist that whenever a student comes in brand new, we kind of assign to them to help acclimate them to the mat, to the expectations, to help answer and create a bit of a relationship so the parents can feel comfortable talking to us, right?
It's a familiar face.
Absolutely. Yeah. Parent communication should feel steady, not like reactive, like, oh, Johnny had a problem, let me do something about that. It's a constant flow. How are things going? Constant check-ins is, how's little Susie doing in school? Just constant communication with the parents around those things, and clear language. And, when talking to the parents, we use the TeamChip acronym, teachable, excellent, accountable, a lot of times in our conversations with people, or we'll use the tenets of Taekwondo, courtesy and integrity and perseverance, and common language that stays the same and stays consistent. Because I think consistency in all of this, especially the communication, is just massive. We want parents to feel like, and not feel like, we want them to know that we're partnering with them.
Absolutely. And I think we've talked about it as well, but also the parents you don't want parents to feel like you're judging them.
Absolutely.
Or you're judging their parenting, but that you're partnering with them. And sometimes just a shift in your language, turning things into a question versus, well, if I were you, I would. Because if I were you, I would, is you're doing it wrong. I've got all the answers. But if you say, okay, so how's that working for you? Or how is this, if you shift it into a question, you make it, you make them think, and then you make them really, and they may not have an answer for you right that minute, but you cause thought versus either a wall, because you just said, well, if I were you, I would. And they go, I don't even want to care. I don't want to listen to this. So you open up that door to actually partner with them versus them feeling like they're being judged by you.
Absolutely. Well, there's something we call and this may be a bigger concept, but the stranger from afar syndrome, right? Or stranger from afar concept. Not syndrome, but it's not a disease, but it's this. And if you're a parent, if you're a martial arts school operator, instructor, you've seen this. You're gonna know exactly what I'm talking about. But it might be me telling my son for 3 years, hey buddy, every day you need to brush your teeth, and every day we fight about brushing teeth, and then one day, the martial arts instructor who he absolutely adores,
that may be 17,
that may be 15, 17 years old, has a mat chat and says, guys, you really need to brush your teeth every day. And your son comes out of class and goes, man, Dad, I'm going to start brushing every day. I got to do it. And this can also relate to your team. Like, I don't know how many times we've taken our instructor group somewhere to train and, asking after high-lows and buffaloes and, hey, what'd you get out? Did you have a good time? And someone will go, oh yeah, they told me I need to re-chamber after every strike. And I'm going,
wow, that was an epiphany. Very
10
good.
years and that clicked for you today. But you don't show them that. You're like, oh, great nugget. I'm so glad glad that worked.
So good.
And you're not bothered that the stranger from afar said something to them.
Right.
And the stranger someone that they actually kind of relate to, that they respect, right?
Yep.
Said something that makes them go, oh, and you're like, whoa. Anyway, the power of this, I think, is if parents and instructors, martial arts school owners pair together well, relate well, communicate well, partner well. And that does not mean that we see eye to eye on 100% of everything. That's just that's not possible.
No.
80%. Okay, maybe that's good enough, whatever. But partner together and understand, I have your child, you as a student's best interest at heart. And you likewise love your kid being here and want to be here, right? And let's get together and work together.
That's right.
Right.
That's
and
right.
so it's a powerful thing. And how does this tie to retention? If that communication is not there and they're quitting over any of these things we've talked about, it's failing, right?
Yeah.
So it's just important that we have systems in place. So Glenn, will you talk a little bit about kind of some of the systems and the way that we do that, like just real quick?
Yeah, so we have automations that are in place for the beginning. Whenever a student gets started, we also have that familiar face,
Right.
that first impression
impressions.
specialist that is really in charge of being the person that they meet on day one, that is beside them, not necessarily hovering over them that first class.
Right.
We actually prefer they do a class method versus it's a private lesson. We do the class because we feel like that gives them a better taste of what they're going to actually be doing on the mat. We feel like it's kind of if it's a private setting, it's kind of a false sense of what they're going to be experiencing. And
Right.
we also really like the fact that they're going to be able to interact with, even on a small scale, but interact with other parents and, have the parents be our ambassadors at the side. So that's really those things. And then it's the intentional conversations,
Right.
the checkup calls, the, miss you calls, just having systems in place to be sure that we're following up with people and answering questions and opening up the door for communication and for conversations
Right.
before it's the quit conversation all of a sudden.
Right.
Because we didn't know there was an issue or there was something going on.
Right. Well, I think we're coming to a close here, and it's been a really good session. I think one thing I wanted to say is, yesterday in a staff meeting, Glyn Ann was sharing that she's connected to an ex-parent on social media. Mm-hmm. The ex-parent of a child that was training with us had lost a sibling, and they now have found out that another one of this ex-student's siblings has a really, really, really bad disease. We'll just say, I don't want to say too much. And Glyn Ann said, I hope it's okay with the team, but I reached out to them and I made them a very special offer for their child to come back if they wanted to come back, because I know at this point in his life, he's lost a sibling. He's very likely going to lose another one very soon. And I mean, it's a horrible situation. Anyway, that proactive looking not for a problem, but looking for how can we serve is huge too, right? Yeah. And what I mean by that is, kind of back earlier, it was like, don't wait until the fire is huge. Now, this little situation, I guess you could say the fire is huge, but it was an ex-student, but looking for opportunities to serve, doing little check-ins in the hallway. We got this from the Satori Alliance from Dave Kohar. It's the 8-step progress check. Thank you. What do you love? What can we do better? Past, present, future. There's like a little outline that makes conversations smooth, respectful, and simple. But having outlines like that in place for your team, role play with your team, how to have these conversations. Right. 2 days ago, I had a dad, another random situation popped to the front counter as I was sitting there and said, I just wanted to share with you that one of the itty bitties had an accident on the mat the other day. All of you martial arts instructors probably know what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. And he said, the way your team moved and handled that was unbelievable and professional. And my response first was, thank you so much for sharing that. I appreciate that feedback, and I'll share that with the team. And to, believe it or not, we role play those things. And
yeah, we practice the most random things. Right. I heard one time at one of those, it's that I experienced the stranger from afar, because it was like the form, when martial arts you teach
Right.
forms, the form for cleaning a toilet. And it was like, that's brilliant. And the brilliance of it is that there is a system for literally everything.
Absolutely.
And that way you can have consistency because everybody knows what to do in that situation and knows the conversations to have.
Yeah. And remember this is not cold and clinical, because it is real live people that operate the system, right? And make the relationship. So guys, just understand that misalignment between instructors and school owners and parents can cost you students like crazy. Do we have it perfected? Not by a long shot, but it's some lessons we've learned in over 30 years of owning our school that we wanted to share with you guys. Just make sure that you're coming up with systems that are personal, consistent communication, closing the gap, consistent expectations. I just beat the word consistent to death because it is so important. The tortoise beat the hare consistently.
Right.
One step at a time while the hare sprinted for a while and took a nap, right? So just make sure we keep that consistency high. Any last minute gold nuggets for them?
So on that note of consistency, I was having a conversation just recently with an educator, and we were talking about consistency and how consistency is so important. And she said something that I said, I need to think about that. She said, consistency goes with fairness. And I went, wait, what? And she said, the thing is, if I'm consistent with deadlines, with, you've turned it in 10 days late, that's going to be this. Whenever a student comes to me and goes, yeah, but I did this. And I say, well, if I did that for you, if I made if
I was inconsistent for you,
right,
basically.
or if I made a consolation for you, then I would have to do it for everybody. And the student's response was, that's fair. That's right. And they understand. And that, it just in that scenario really encapsulated this whole conversation.
Right.
When they understand, if I made it okay for you to not be, be acting one way off the mat and then one way, and said that was okay and rewarded that with a black belt, then that negates, that makes it unfair for everybody.
Right. Absolutely. And I think the word that I would throw in there is the why.
Right.
By explaining if I did it for you, I'd have to, there's the why that kind of attaches.
That's
It's so powerful.
Yep.
All right, guys, it has been a great session. Glyn Ann, thank you for being in here with me again. I always love it.
Absolutely.
And I hope you guys enjoyed it. Like it, share it, give us a review, and we hope to see you guys on the next one. Thank you for tuning into the Team Chip Podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget, subscribe, share, and or leave a review because we need you. We appreciate you so much. And without you, we can't make this happen. Remember, consistency is the key to success. So go out there and never be outworked.